Now, inclusive growth, it's a term that often comforts people. We all talk about it, and I don't know anyone who doesn't support it or endorse it in any shape or form. But what does it actually mean? And in our view, whether we mean it or not depends on how well we support the businesses that we've been working with over the last couple of years or so. And how well we support those businesses rests upon three things, which I'm going to look at: who we're actually talking about, how we're working with those businesses, and what we learn from working with those businesses. Who are we focusing on in this study? In the main, we look at ethnic minority-owned businesses, many of whom are family-owned. Years of research and our own experience on this project will highlight one core feature of those businesses: their financial affairs, financial resilience is bloody complex. It's really entangled, and it embraces the individuals. It encompasses families, households. Often it's linked with community, credit history, and particular kinds of networks. The mistake we make as academics, and some business support providers, none in this room, but some business support providers, we separate them out. We assume that the strategy of a corner shop or a retailer or a curry, a takeaway, is devised and combined and hermetically sealed within the four walls of that business. It's not. It's a function of what goes on in the household and individual decision-making, sibling relationships, intergenerational dynamics, social goals, as well as economic goals. So when we talk about financial resilience, how can we understand it if we don't take a holistic view that encompasses all those complexities? Mainstream institutions often struggle with that complexity. And one of the reasons for undertaking this project is to begin to tease out some of these really diffuse dynamics and try to make sense of them, not only for policy and academic reasons, but to do something practically. So we're focusing on minority businesses, but this is not a minority pursuit. Ethnic minority businesses, if you look at them, if you look at their sectoral dynamics, they tend to be focused in retail, in particular places, individual, very small micro businesses. Those are the kinds of businesses that, believe it or not, are the norm in UK PLC. They are part and parcel of the everyday economy. The everyday economy is one of the 5 pillars articulated in the government's small business strategy. It's also a part of, I'm going to test you now, Ian, part of your regional growth plan, West Midlands regional growth plan. So there's a commitment at senior policy levels to take this sector seriously. And I have to say, about time too, because we are absolutely fascinated and in awe of the tech bros and AI. But it's the kind of businesses that we're looking at that makes economies like those in Birmingham and the West Midlands tick. And by recognizing those businesses, taking them seriously, we are really realizing the importance of their economic and social contribution. Those of you who know the current day preoccupations of CREM today will know we're obsessed with the report we wrote a few years ago called Time to Change, which is the blueprint to support minority businesses across the UK. And one point we make in that report is the value of minority businesses at the moment is around 25 billion. But if we supported them properly, the kind of businesses we're going to talk about, that contribution could increase fourfold to 100 billion. And to get to that 100 billion, what we need to do, yes, tackle some structural issues, but at a minimum, we need to recognize where they are, what they do, what makes them tick, what makes them unique, and how we can bring them in to the system and give them the support they need. So that's who we're talking about. But how should we work with them? Implicitly, we're critiquing sort of generalist approaches. So if we're saying there's something not working in the mainstream system, what should we do? And we take that really seriously as engaged scholars in all the academics involved in this project want to do the research, but what they want to do more than the research is use those insights to make a difference. So what we've done, as Andy mentioned, is partner with Citizens UK. We didn't want to conduct a study on minority businesses. We want to develop interventions with them. We can only do that with authenticity and integrity if we adopt a relational approach with our partners, right? If we have a relationship of reciprocity, valuing their local intelligence as much as our so-called academic intelligence. And so partnerships with Citizens UK aren't decoration. Without them, we have no integrity. And so that was very much built into the design. So working with Citizens UK, adopting their methodology of relational one-to-one meetings with business owners to understand their motivations. We developed interventions, which Saeed will talk about in a minute. Importantly though, we didn't do that in isolation. We had an advisory group that comprised people from the mainstream business support system. And that was really fundamental to the design. Again, not decoration, because we see those mainstream institutions not as adversaries, but as partners in the making. So everyone on that advisory group, the combined authority, and Ian, thank you for your time, Nadia, colleagues from Aviva and other organizations who want to engage with the communities that we are working with, we brought them together. So the advisory group was designed to facilitate, to broker connections between the communities who have been often excluded and mainstream institutions. So in many ways, the way we were working was effectively modeling what an inclusive system actually looks like. It was not a design that looked good on paper. It needed the substance, and we valued those connections. And so when we devised the interventions, and this is really a critical point, we weren't duplicating what was already there. We benefited from the advice of people like Ian, who said, we've already doing this, or this might work, or this could add value to us. And that really informed our interventions and our approach and helped to maximize the value of the initiative. So that's how we worked. And then Saeed and Hassan will talk a bit more detail about how that operated in the nitty-gritty. So my final point I want to make is, well, what next? How do we learn from what we found? Well, in a minute or so, Hassan and Saeed will talk about the project, and Hassan will share some of the findings that he derived from the numerous interactions with the entrepreneurs who gave so generously of their time. And they will show those interactions, the nature of the disconnect and the kind of gap that exists within the business support system, and why it's really, really important to understand the kind of expertise, the dynamics that resides in local communities and the distinctive way they operate. If we don't, our interventions will always fail. So it's by understanding those distinctive dynamics, the particular ways these businesses operate. You know, one of the things that's really remarkable about understanding and working with these kinds of businesses is they do actually have their own quite sophisticated, elaborate ecosystems, networks that we could tap into and we could make even stronger if we respected them, acknowledged them, and worked with them rather than ignore them, that which too often tends to be the case. So Hassan's findings will really highlight the gap. Saeed and will show the kind of model in practice that we developed to overcome that gap, focusing very strongly on the relational element with business owners, but with the wider community as well. I'll come back after the comments to share a few reflections. But before I hand over, I just want to leave you with sort of a question. You know, how can we collectively work together to actually work with those businesses in the way that I've set out rather than around them? And maybe that's something we can ponder on throughout the rest of our time together. Thank you very much, Hassan.